Many soldiers were killed there in what became known as the Battle of El Adi. Well, let's get more on this now. We're joined by Mark Schroeder. He's the founder of Geomarkets. It's a consultancy firm offering geopolitical and market analysis on Africa. And he's joining us live from Austin, Texas. Very good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. Why do you think Al-Shabaab carried out this attack now?
Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me on your program. Great to speak with you. And Al-Shabaab conducted this operation in Nairobi in order to restore credibility and prominence to that Islamist militant group that had been on serious defensive operations inside Somalia due to aggressive foreign and African Union military operations degrading them over the last several years.
And Al-Shabaab have said that they'll stop attacking Kenya if Kenyan troops pull out of, the African Union force that they're a part of in Somalia. Is that likely?
That's probably a false call by Al-Shabaab. And remember that Kenyan Defense Forces have been operating in Somalia since 2011. So here we are 8 years later, and Al-Shabaab is only now trying to persuade Kenyan Defense Forces to withdraw. But on the other hand, the African Union mission in Somalia has tried to press for a drawdown in military operations in Somalia, and some have even gone so far as saying that there should be a drawdown by July of this year. Kenyan Defense Forces, on the other hand, have said, let's hold on a little bit. Let's not make a premature withdrawal from Somalia until we're certain that that the country's security and stabilization is assured before we do withdraw the estimated 4,000 forces that Kenya does maintain in Somalia.
And in the meantime, what can the Kenyan government do to actually stop these seemingly random attacks? Can it protect its people? Was this a failure by the Kenyan government to protect its citizens?
That's a great question, and it requires a complicated response to it. And certainly the part of Al-Shabaab's motivations for conducting these very prominent and very disturbing attacks in Nairobi, which, to be sure, they do not do often. You noted earlier the previous attacks were in 2015, 2013 of this type of size and scale and damage. Al-Shabaab is very careful in conducting operations in Nairobi as it retains that Kenyan capital as a base of supply and support. Now, because it is under such intense defensive operations in Somalia against aggressive attacks from foreign militaries, to include from the United States, from Britain, from Kenya, from other African Union contributing nations, Al-Shabaab needs to demonstrate that it's a still credible militant threat to not only Somalia, but to neighboring countries. And so part of the difficulty for the Kenyan government in responding or in dissuading Al-Shabaab from conducting these very damaging operations in Kenya requires a broader response and requires the inclusion of responses from foreign governments that are conducting operations against Al-Shabaab in Somalia. But what the Kenyan government can do is interrogate, disrupt the supply that Al-Shabaab uses in Nairobi, and really discourage that militant group from relying on sympathizers and supporters that are crucial to its.
And the UN have actually said that corruption plays a part in the lack of security. How much of a problem is corruption within authorities, the sort of sympathizers which allow such attacks?
Sure, corruption is a contributing factor, no doubt, and corruption within Somalia, corruption within Kenyan structures of government. But I would argue that that's not a deciding factor, but it's really how Al-Shabaab is trying to defend its legitimacy and its prominence within Somalia, and how to discourage foreign military operations that are quite disruptive and quite destructive to that militant group and its defense of its prerogatives.
Mr. Schroeder, it's great to get your expertise on this. We really appreciate your time. Thank you. That is Mark Schroeder in Austin, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.